Now, let me answer the $1,000,000 question before we even get into the full tea of everything. Can you change your hip dips? Like, if you have hip dips, can you change the hip dip? Are we on? Are we on? Are we live? Let's get into the tea. Hip dips, okay? Can you change hip dips? Can you grow your hip dips? Are hip dips even a bad thing? Let's get into everything right here, right now. And I'm going to be giving you nothing but facts. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of people spreading a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. We are going to start from the top. First of all, what are hip dips? As a disclaimer, I have hip dips, okay? Hip dips are the hip section of your body. It's like it kind of comes in, right? You haven't got natural childbearing hips where they're coming out to the side, ready to pop out a child, okay? They actually kind of like go in a little bit. I'm going to put an example somewhere on the screen for you guys to see if you're not aware, but I'm sure if you're watching this video, you know what the hell hip dips are. Now, let me answer the $1,000,000 question before we even get into the full tea of everything. Can you change your hip dips? Like, if you have hip dips, can you change the hip dip? The short answer is no. The long answer is yes. The reason why you cannot change hip dips is because it is literally your bone structure. Okay? Hip dips are a natural part of the body's bone structure shaped by the pelvis. Another thing that will affect the appearance of your hip dips is your body's natural fat distribution. Okay, so where your body naturally distributes fat around your body, there's not too much we can do about this because it is literally where your body naturally decides to store the fat. Unfortunately, we can't program the body and be like, hey, could you actually put that fat around my hips so they can have a wider appearance? Unfortunately, we haven't got that far with the AI yet. I'm just joking. I hope we never do. But like, seriously, okay, it is your bone structure and it is down to your body's natural fat distribution. Now let's get deeper into these explanations. So as I said, they are literally your body's natural bone structure caused by the shape of your pelvis. So visually, they cause an inward curve on your body just below where the hip bones are. Some people have more prominent hip dips. Other people have more of an outward curve around their hips. For the most part, this is down to genetics, okay? And one thing that I want to clear up before we even go further into this video is there's nothing wrong with hip dips. Okay, I think that, and I'm saying this as someone that has hip dips, and when I was younger, and still I wouldn't say it's something I'm completely over, but definitely when I was younger, I was so insecure about having hip dips because I was like, okay, my legs are growing, my ass is growing, but you know, when I stand straight, I still have hip dips. There's no curve going on. But I think a lot of people feel insecure about hip dips because we are taught as women that you're meant to have hips, literally, because society even calls them childbearing hips. It's like, if you don't have hips, are you even a woman? Can you even bear a child? Can you even give birth? Like, you know? And this just ties into body positivity because whenever I talk about skinny shaming, people are always like, oh, well, skinny is the standard, whatever. Like, yes, at some points in life in Western cultures, it has been the standard. However, when I was growing up, I definitely heard a lot that real women have curves. I definitely heard a lot men like women with meat on their bones, okay? Not dips in their bones. They like women that have meat on their bones. So I think we're literally programmed to believe that all women should be curvy, should have wide hips. And if you don't have wide hips, then you're just not it. You're not a real woman. And that can feel quite sucky. But I'm here to tell you that literally, there's nothing actually wrong with having hip dips, babe. Like, it's literally it's your bones. Like, you can't be getting mad at your bone structure. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's difficult to unlearn that, especially when society still holds some of those beliefs. But the way that I've tried to deal with it is to truly be grateful for everything else my body does for me. Being grateful that although I have hip dips, at least I have a pelvic bone. At least my legs are attached to my hips. At least my torsos are attached to my hips, because if not, I would be potentially paralyzed. I would potentially be in a wheelchair. So I'm grateful for the fact that my bones are still structured the way they are, because it means that I can still walk, I can still go to the gym, I can still live life without limitations. And that's something that we can take for granted when we think about something so small as, oh my God, my hips don't go out, they go in instead. So try to come from a place of gratitude. It's difficult. It's not easy every day. Like I said, I don't think it's something that I'm completely 100% over. Like, it's never something that I'm like, ugh, I wish I, didn't have that or had a bit more fat around there. But it is something that over the years I've learned to accept and I've learned to love myself for, which if you do have hip dips, I suggest that you do as well. So now we're going to get into the sciencey stuff when it comes to your hip dips. So the width of your pelvis is going to determine how much your hips go out or they come in. So people with a higher position pelvic bone and a wider position pelvic bone are actually going to have more noticeable hip dips than someone whose pelvic bone sits a little lower and is a bit more narrow. So because we are talking about your literal bone, okay, you can't change this through your diet or through exercise, because no diet or exercise is going to change your bone structure. Okay, so all of these videos that you're seeing online that are telling you how to get rid of hip dips, do these exercises to get rid of your hip dips, truly it is clickbait. Okay, because like I said, we're talking about your bone structure. So can you physically change your hip dips? No, you can't. But there are some things you can do to help build around the hip dips and to create an illusion that you don't have them. But really and truly, you do still have the hip dips because you have not changed your bone structure. Unless you undergo surgery, which I don't even know if there is a surgery that changes your bone structure in your hips. But the other thing to do, which has become very common in the last few years, is to get a BBL, right? And that's when you're literally putting the fat around your hips because your body doesn't naturally distribute the fat into that area. So fat distribution, I think that this is something that is often missed when people do speak about hip dips as well, because we often focus on the bone structure, but your body's natural fat distribution also plays a role into how visible your hip dips are. It's not something that you can directly control, but again, there are some things we can do to create the illusion. So for the most part, a higher body fat percentage is going to make your hip dips less noticeable. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to be noticeable at all. It also then doesn't mean that you're going to have a wider hip shape. It just means that you might not be physically be able to see the dips. So you might just be going straight down instead of having a dip. But again, this depends on where your body naturally distributes fat. Now, of course, the lower percentage of body fat that you have, the more visible your hip dips may be because there's just less fat around you in general. So there's not a lot of fat padding over the bone structure. Now, of course, if you're someone that's really skinny, you probably also have a low body fat percentage, which could again be the reason why your hip dips are a lot more visible. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about how they have made their hip dips go away, but I can literally see, even though that they were a lot skinnier, you can see that their bone structure, they still have wider hips. They just didn't have the weight, right? So then when they put on weight, they get this more prominent figure 8 figure. But beneath the weight that they put on, they still have a bone structure where their hips come out and widen. They don't have a natural bone structure that actually has hip dips. Because the thing is, unfortunately, even if you gain weight, like your body decides where the fat is going to go throughout your body. Like, have you ever seen some people where they're like, whenever they put on weight, it goes straight to their ass, right? Or whenever they put on weight, maybe it goes straight to their chest area. For some people, maybe it goes straight to their face. Like, you know, as a woman, where your fat tends to go when you do gain weight. This isn't by choice. This isn't by you choosing. This is literally your body. Your body is in control in that area, okay? We don't have a lot of control over that. So what can we actually do about hip dips? What you can do is build muscle around the hips, around the glutes, and this is going to help give the hips a fuller look and not make your hip dips so noticeable. Because remember, and I'm going to keep reiterating this throughout the video, your hip dips are caused by your bone structure and your natural fat distribution. So you cannot remove them entirely, you cannot get rid of them entirely, but we can do a little something, build some more muscle around there, and it's going to give them a little bit more of a rounded appearance. So let's break down how we can start to build muscle around the hips. So of course, primarily, we want to be focusing on glute exercises. I'm going to break down the three main different muscles that are in the glutes, the ones that are going to specifically really be making a difference to the hip area, and exercises that you want to start implementing if you want to start seeing this change. First of all, we have the glute maximus, and by the name you should be able to tell that this is the big ass part of the glute. Okay, so the main part of the glute is built up from the gluteus maximus, and this is essentially the powerhouse of your glutes. This is where all the work really happens. Then we have the glute medius. So this is what I guess a lot of people call the side booty, and this part of the glute muscle is really what's going to kind of help shape your glutes. So specifically, this muscle in the glute sits upon the upper outer part of your glute. I'm going to try put a picture up so you have some visuals so it makes more sense to you. But this is a glute muscle that is primarily going to help you build that muscle around the glutes to help produce the appearance of your hip dips. And then lastly, we have the glute minimus. Now, again, by the name, this is a tiny little glute muscle. It's the smallest out of the three, and it actually lies underneath the glute medius. So although it's not really big, because it lies underneath the glute medius, it's still important to target this glute muscle, because if you strengthen this glute muscle, it's going to help your stability and overall glute function in those other two main glute muscles. Does that make sense? Now, when it comes to glute exercises that are going to help build your hips, I think a lot of people just tend to focus on the glute medius. You do want to focus on building all three, because all three are going to contribute to you having a nice shape, round, bootylicious ass. So just because we want to focus on the side booty doesn't mean that you should be neglecting your glute maximus or your glute minimus as well. So I'm going to give you 5 exercises that, to be honest, you can put together in one workout. And this is going to help you build muscle around the hip area and help reduce your hip dips. First exercise is hip thrust. This is primarily working the gluteus maximus. And remember the key fundamentals when it comes to building muscle. You want to make sure that you're focusing on progressive overload. You want to make sure that you're focusing on mind and muscle connection. You want to be adding some advanced set variations in there as well. So these can be things like supersets, time under tension, etc. If you want me to do another video on workout breakdown, advanced set variations, let me know. I'm not going to go into it too much in this video because this one is all about hip dips. Then you can go into cable kickback. So this is also going to work your glute maximus, but also focus on the glute medius depending on your foot placement. Lateral banded walk. So these are primarily going to work on your gluteus medius and your gluteus minimus, of course helping you to fill out those hip dips. Bulgarian split squats, okay? And you want to make sure that you're doing this with form that is going to help target your glutes more so than your quads. Again, I can go into depth on this in another video. Just comment down below if you want to know about that. But this is going to engage all 3 of those glute muscles and really help with the overall shape and size of the booty. And then lastly, you can do clamshells and fire hydrants. These are great for the gluteus minimus. They really fire up. And something that works very similar to this is a hip abduction machine. Now this is literally primarily focusing on your gluteus medius, your hip abductors, which is the outside part of your hip. So again, it's going to help contribute to you building that muscle around your hips. So to conclude, my beautiful ladies, hip dips are okay. I don't know. I feel like I needed someone to tell me that when I was younger, but having hip dips doesn't make you any less of a woman. Having hip dips doesn't make you any less beautiful. Just because you have hip dips doesn't mean that you can have a fat ass behind it. So it's all good, you know? If you do want to try and minimize the appearance of your hip dips, there's nothing you can directly do because it is your bone structure. However, we can build muscle around the hips. That's going to help bring down the appearance a little bit. Thank you for tuning in with me today. My name is Bella, your head coach and founder here at Weight Wonders. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe and join the weight gain community. If you're a regular, thank you for tuning in again. Lots and lots of love. And ladies, like I said, comment down below if you want an in-depth video about workouts, training, etc., or anything else that you might want to know about when it comes to your weight gain journey, because I am your weight gain fairy godmother, okay? So ladies, lots of love, and as always, happy gaining.